Good morning. Welcome to Unity. I'm Reverend Roger Mock.
You are.
Apparently I am. And we're happy to welcome you here this morning and welcome some others that you'll be meeting in a few moments. Well, we'll start with centering in, remembering that in the sanctuary, we are the sanctuary, each one of us as well. Here we go.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary, sanctuary for you. Sanctuary, sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Sanctuary, sanctuary for you. Sanctuary, sanctuary for you. For you, oh Lord, for you, oh Lord, for you. Open my eyes, illumine me. Open my eyes, illumine me. I just want to thank you for giving me this life. I just want to thank you for giving me this life. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With
Please welcome Peggy Kaufman.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Unity. We have a full house. It's wonderful. My name is Peggy Kaufman, and I am the current co-president of your board of trustees. And I have an opening poem by Dana Fouts, who I often quote from. Hold the silence like a mother holds her child. Hold your ground while all around you structures crumble into nothing. Focus on the still point in your center until you are filled with light, until Spirit speaks to you in words you understand, until the love in your heart grows so strong it must be shared. So are there any prayer chaplains here today? Dennis, Dottie, and Dave. Dennis, Dottie, Dave, and Ginger. So if you want a moment of prayer after the service, you can step to the back of the sanctuary and they will find you there, or you can find them there. Okay, we have announcements. First of all, welcome back to our friend John Welshons. Yay. And I've been told to say that you will be available on Monday and Tuesday for consultations. If anyone's interested, speak to John about setting up a time. So today, John will speak both this morning during the service and during a workshop this afternoon on honoring the seasons of our lives. I love the image of letting go of resistance to change, because life is all about change, and identifying with our inner spirit, which is a constant. So, stay if you can this afternoon for the workshop. And there's food. There's food. So yes, we have food downstairs in between. On Tuesday, we have Little Buddha book study, book 5 with Rob Geyer. And it's at 7 o'clock. If you'd like to join, you don't have to have come before. You can come this week for the first time, or to this class for the first time. Then we have our fall membership class coming up soon, 6 Wednesdays beginning at the end of September, September 27th from 7 to 8:30. Following meditation, which is going to start that same date. It's going to start at 6:30 instead of 5:30 as it has been. So you can come, I think it's either online or in person. You can come at 6:30 for meditation and stay for the class, or you can do that online. Yeah. So let's see. And John Frederick is starting a new Prosperity Now group. Actually, it has started. It looks like it started last Tuesday. But you can register if you're interested, I'm sure. You can still register if you're interested. Prosperity Now Life of Dreams at yahoo.com. It's definitely a Zoom class since John lives in Paris. So let's see, that's happening. And then on October 1st, we have a sacred service fair that we're planning for after the service. And this is for everyone who is interested in doing service in our community. to check out the options. Come and see. We're going to have sort of like the small business fair recently. We're going to have tables with information about all the different committees and groups that we have here at Unity. And you can take a look and decide what fits for you, what calls to you. And then sign up for something and become more involved, because becoming more involved is a wonderful thing here. Okay, today at 7 o'clock, we also have our one-song service, so we have a busy day here today. So if you still have energy, come back at 7 o'clock tonight. And I think that's it. We have our daily word, so just take a breath and settle in. Today's daily word is joy. God's joy blesses each day of my life. The aroma of my favorite foods from childhood brings a happy memory to mind. Hearing the voice of a dear one warms my heart. Looking upon a newborn's face for the first time evokes a feeling words can't even describe. While the giddy excitement of a child's joy may now be a memory, the joy I know today still delights me. Each day I embrace more completely the joy of knowing I am a living expression of God. God's life lives as me. God's wisdom is within me, my guide to a deepening understanding of myself and the world around me. The love I share with people who are dear to me is God's love, living in each heart and expressing as each of us. What greater joy could there be? Rejoice always. Fellow Thessalonians 5:16. So again, let's repeat. God's joy blesses each day of my life. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to sing some words from the Indian mystic poet Kabir, 15th century or so poet, revered particularly by in the Sikh religion. And if you've ever come to one song, you've probably sung this with us.
You'll never need to love again. you'll never have to seek again. Oh, my soul, you come and you go through the paths of time and space. In useless play, you'll not find the way, so set your course and go. Pray such a prayer with all of your soul, you'll never have to pray again. Die such a death at the feet of God, you'll never have to die again. Oh, my soul, you come and you go through the paths of time and space. In useless play, you'll not find the way, so set your course and go. So set your course and go. So set your course and go. Breathe my love, breathe my love, breathe in the quiet center. Breathe my love, breathe my love, breathe in the quiet center. Breathe my love, breathe my love, breathe in the quiet center.
Oh, good morning. It is really just incredible to look out here and see so many faces, some faces that I have yet to meet, and some faces who are familiar and have not been here in a while. And John, it is such a pleasure to welcome you back. The first time I met John was on my first Sunday, November 7th, 2021, when I was announced as the new minister here. So it's really exciting to have you back. And so I invite you to breathe into that quiet center that we create in this sanctuary, that we make a sanctuary by our presence. And for those of you who are joining us on the streaming, we send our presence and share our presence with you, and we're grateful for your presence as well. Because wherever you are, God is, and wherever we are on this spiritual path that we share together, you are warmly welcomed here in the fullness of how God shows up in you and as you. So if you are new to this community and are curious about knowing more, you can certainly always talk to me. We've got our little name, whoops, oh, I've got to turn it around so I know who I am. Talk to us. If this is your first or second time here and you're curious, find somebody to ask a question of, and if they're new too, you can go together to find somebody else and find out who we are. But for sure, come on the 1st of October and find out more ways that you can get involved in all of the life. Those announcements that happen every Sunday at the beginning of our service are just a sign of all of the life that is happening here in this community, and it is such a blessing. I feel very aware of the seasons of my own life today. I was in Buffalo this past week to officiate a cousin's wedding. A cousin I've known since he was born, and he is right in between the age of my two older kids. So I was aware of all of the gifts of everything in my life that has brought me to where I have this privilege to walk with people in that moment of joy and to be able to officiate a wedding for a beloved family member that I've come to know in a new way, walking with him as the groom, getting to know him and his bride in a different way. I traveled with my mom and dad who are in their 80s. I know it's a very tender blessing that I have not yet faced in the season of my life, letting go of their physical presence here. And so wherever you are in those seasons of your life, there are people who transform us, right? Who lead us to those deep moments of sometimes through sorrow, sometimes through struggle, sometimes through joy. They lead us into a deeper awareness of where God is calling us. It is so exciting to have little people coming in. Welcome, Maria and grandbabies. Grandboys, they're not babies anymore. Sorry, guys. So as we come to this moment of pausing before we say the words of our beautiful vision and mission, how have you been transformed? Where are you in the season of your life at this moment? Where do you hunger for more transformation and awakening? And hold that lightly or heavily in your heart and mind. And as we bring our awareness and our breath together into these sacred words, we feel the presence of all that calls us to transform and to be transformation in the world as we share the words of our vision. We envision a world transformed through the spiritual awakening of all. And again, to pause into that desire, that affirmation, that vision of transformation that leads us into our mission. Our call to be people who live in a way that this is our daily prayer. So breathing into that, let's share the call that is our mission. We awaken to and embrace the divine essence of all beings through prayer and service in our community and in the world. And we know that it is not always easy to live that mission, to live into that vision. But we also know we do not do it alone. We do it together in partnership with each other and with the divine. And so we affirm the power that we have in us and where that comes from as we say this beautiful affirmation of oneness. The power of Christ's love now releases me from any sense of separation from spirit or others. There is only one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, the all-loving goodness of God. And so it is. Amen.
Okay, we'll sing this song to bring us into our time with John this morning. Invite us to center in.
I'm raising the veil between me and my God. No separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. Right here in my heart, I'm raising the veil between me and my God. No separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. I'm raising the veil. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. I want to know you, oh God, I'm raising the veil. I want to see you, oh God, I'm raising the veil. I want to hear you, oh God, I'm raising the veil. I want to feel you, oh God, I'm raising the veil. I want to praise you, oh God, I'm raising the veil. I want to love you, oh God, I'm raising the veil between me and my God. No separation, no distance at all. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. God is right here in my heart. I'm raising the veil. I'm raising the veil.
Good stuff ready for you, John.
If it feels comfortable to you, gently close the eyes. And as the sound of the gong settles into silence, let it be a reflection on how everything arises, exists for a period of time, changes, and passes away. As you tune to your breath, allow that same reflection. How every breath arises, exists for a period of time, changes, and passes away. And then the next breath arises, exists, changes, and passes away. See if you can meet your breath as sensation. Wherever in your body the strongest sensation manifests, as you breathe in, as you breathe out, that point of sensation may move and change. Just stay with it. Breathing in, breathing out. Just let the body soften and become open and receptive to these sensations, these sounds. See if you can feel as if you are floating in the ocean. The ocean of love. And it fills this entire sacred sanctuary and extends out onto the street and the neighborhood. Ultimately, the ocean of love is the entire universe. And this body you live in, breathing in, breathing out, drinking in the magnificent nutrition offered by Mother Earth that comes to you in the invisible air. And we're held in place by Mother Earth's field of gravity. See if you can feel her love extending up and holding you from the center of the earth. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing out. And then see if you can receive each new breath as if it's the first breath you've ever taken. A completely new experience. And yet how familiar. As if the breath is like a tender, soothing stroking. Soothing you. Awakening you. Lifting the veil of the mind. And allowing us to know that God is with us, in us, and around us, always. And let's just take a few moments together of that precious inner silence. Breathing in. Breathing out. When the gong rings 3 times, just allow your eyes to continue to stay closed and notice the sound that arises, exists, changes, and passes away. back into the silence. When it feels comfortable to you, gently and slowly open the eyes. Good morning. Hi. I have some history in this sanctuary, and it's so delightful to see Jim and Kay Fuller here this morning. And the first thing that I thought of after seeing them out in the lobby was I came in here and I noticed this beautiful candle, which used to sit up here on the platform. But the first time I was here, the first thing I did was knock it over and break it. And I believe ever since then it has sat down there on the... The new one is down there on the floor. And Jim and I greeted each other out in the lobby, and he said, "You haven't changed a bit." At least I think that's what he said, because I'm losing my hearing, so sounded something like that. And I said, "You haven't either." And then he said, "And we're both lying." But you know, I think what we're exploring today is how to tune to that part of us which never changes. So we're going to come at it from different angles this morning and this afternoon in our workshop. And we're going to try to remember that part of us which came into form when we were infants, before we were infants, when we were in our mother's womb, that existed before our body existed, that existed before our mother existed, that existed before this planet existed. And we've all still got it. And it's hidden by the flimsiest of veils in our minds, or created by our minds. I was remembering a story I may have told here at some point, but about 15 years ago, a new fellow came to one of my meditation classes, and he signed up for the entire series. So it was a class once a week for 6 weeks, probably. And he came in, and he would sit there looking like, you know, Rodin's statue of the thinker, you know. He'd sit there looking at me like... He never said anything, and he came back to each class. But on the third class he came to, he finally raised his hand, and I called on him. I thought, this is going to be really interesting. So he asked me what, at that point, was the best question I had ever heard in a meditation class. And he said, "You know, I've been listening to you think about, or do you talk about how we are all pure love and pure light and pure joy." And he said, "If that's true, where on earth did we go wrong? And it was one of those moments where, how do I answer that? And what I heard was, we think. We think. And then yesterday, just yesterday, I was visiting with a wonderful new friend in her 30s who has been just recently beginning to explore the spiritual journey. And she looked at me and she said, "Can you tell me what the purpose of thinking is?" Well, I could say something flippant like to confuse us and keep us agitated. But it's fascinating, you know? So we're going to endeavor to remember and taste that place in us beyond thinking, beyond thought, beyond opinion, beyond experience. Because that's the part of us that never changes. And that's the part of us when, if we live in it, the ups and downs and warps and woofs of our lives aren't nearly as frustrating or dramatic or bothersome. They become kind of fascinating. You live in that place of eternal joy and fascination. Doesn't mean you don't feel pain. Doesn't mean you don't feel loss. It doesn't mean you don't wish things were different than they are. But on the other hand, when you can surrender to how they are, life becomes just amazing. This is a sweet little poem I recently revisited from Meher Baba. It's called Life at Its Best. If understood, life is simply a jest. If misunderstood, life becomes a pest. Once overcome, life is ever at rest. For pilgrims of the path, life is a test. When relinquished through love, life is at its best. So I know many of you know our dear friend Patricia Hunt Perry, who left this life back in March of this year, who was my connection to this church, who I think probably mercilessly hounded Jim to invite me here. She's a very devoted friend. And so her son, Jeff, invited me to come stay at her house while I'm in town. And I arrived last night. And the last time I was there was the day that she died. And so he escorted me to the room I was going to stay in, 3 bedrooms at the one end of the house. And he said, "And I have this room all fixed up for you." And it was the room she died in. And I thought, well, it's an interesting place to lay my head. Now, for many years now, I have been working with a reflection in my morning meditation every morning. And the reflection is, today could be my last day on earth, or the last for someone I love. In light of that, how do I want to spend it? What do I want to fill my mind with? How do I want to act in the world? Do I want to be cranky and unpleasant or loving and kind? Do I want to be selfish and greedy or generous and giving? And ultimately behind this series of questions I ask is the question, do I want to be happy? Do I want to be at peace? Or do I want to be frightened into acting in a way that is not in harmony with love? So that has been, I've been doing it for 30 years now. I've been meditating for 54 years. But this practice came to me in my early 40s when I was going through a really difficult period. And it just brought everything into focus. Because the fact that we are mortal, that these bodies don't live forever, can be one of the most powerful tools for waking us up if we just remember that. Remember that. You know, if every interaction you have with another human being might be the last time you ever see them, or the last time they ever see you. It has nothing to do with age. You know, I nearly died when I was 3 years old. And when I was 12 years old, my probably then favorite person in the world, who was a babysitter, I called Aunt Mabel. One of those people who isn't a real aunt, but she called her Aunt Mabel. Just a beautiful, saintly human being. And she was coming to my house for my 12th birthday party and was crossing a street and was hit and killed by a car. She was 72 years old. See, I knew she was old, but I never thought of her going that way. And these are moments that just wake us up, hopefully. And, you know, it's interesting how I tune to these ways of being in the moment. And, you know, when I arrive, like I arrived here this morning, and I'm meeting and greeting and loving all these wonderful people, many of you, who I've known for years, and meeting some new people. And a number of people said, I'm really looking forward to your talk. And, you know, I'm touched by that. I don't mean to demean the sentiment, which is a beautiful sentiment, but there's also a reflection on, yeah, but we're here now. Just visiting with each other, looking in each other's eyes, hugging whatever we're doing, holding hands. Don't miss this moment because you're looking forward to another moment. Because mine's always thinking that it can make things better. The condition of the world is the human mind trying to make things better. I read a fascinating article yesterday. I have no business trying to comment on any of the scientific validity of it, but it was a commentary in the New York Times by a fellow. The headline said something like, in endeavoring to save the world, we created a ticking time bomb. And it was a story of how when he was a college student, he lived in Canada, and he volunteered to spend the summer planting trees where forests had been clear-cut by companies that clear-cut forests. And so they went into the forest, and they would spend all day, all summer long, planting trees. And he said we planted them in neat, orderly rows, and it was all wonderful, and we thought we were doing such a good thing for the planet, when in fact these are the trees that have been burning all summer. I remember Ram Dass saying, you know, in the 50s, that he was a proponent of nuclear power, nuclear energy for electricity. And, you know, then it seemed reasonable. And then looking back on it, people started thinking, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Now there's a whole new wave of people saying maybe it is a good idea, you know. These things go up and down and up and down, and cycles of life. So it's like tuning to the seasons, you know. I used to hate, when I was a child, I hated fall because I hated school. And fall meant back to school. So to me, it was just dreary and depressing, and I wanted no part of it. And it wasn't until I was 18 and had just started meditating that I stepped outside one day in October and looked around and went, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. So, in the same way, you know, if you look in the mirror and say, what on earth has happened to me? I was young just a moment ago. You know, it's just fascinating. And sometimes the way we react to it is like, well, let me figure out how to look young again. I could get surgery. I can wear this, I can put that on, I can color my hair. And, you know, as I often like to say, it's kind of like if in the fall we all just started running around with cans of green paint, painting all the leaves green again, because we don't like the way they look when they're no longer green. So the invitation then is to see the beauty in every moment, in every form, in every change of form. You know, I mean, I still jog, a lot slower than I used to, but you know, I like to get out and exercise. I like to eat good food. I like to do what I can to feel good and stay as healthy as possible. But, you know, it's fighting a losing battle, ultimately. And, you know, the greatest happiness comes from surrendering to the way things are. You know, many of you, I'm sure, read that wonderful book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is, in which she's pointed out so clearly that our suffering is created by our arguments with reality. Now, I was thinking and feeling into what Reverend Brigid shared with us this morning about her parents and not feeling prepared to lose them. And I'm thinking, yeah, and my parents have been gone. My mother died in 1969 when I was 18, and my father in 1983 when I was 33. And, you know, it was amazing. My greatest fear when I was a child was that my mother would die. And yet, when it happened, she had brain cancer and went very quickly, about 3 months from the time it was diagnosed. And she wanted to come home. Now, this was 1969. There were no hospice organizations. There was, you know, that we hadn't heard of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross yet, although she had begun her work in Chicago at the University of Chicago Medical School. But there was no preparation. There was no, and the doctor said, you don't want to bring her home. She, you know, the way he described it was he said it's a real mess. Like dying is a mess. And yet we brought her home. And it turned out to be one of the most grace-filled, graceful nourishing, beautiful spiritual experiences I've ever had. And it was my mother, later, still didn't realize what had happened, except that I would sit and gaze into her eyes because she couldn't talk. So I thought, well, she can't talk, I shouldn't talk, that would be rude. You know, because most people go in and say, I don't know what to say, or they jabber incessantly saying nothing. But I thought, I'm just going to be with her. So we just sat and looked in each other's eyes. And it was the first time I consciously saw the light of God in another human being. And here's my mother with her body falling away at the age of 55. And yet this incredibly radiant, almost blinding white light coming out of her. And I remember one day we were sitting holding hands on her bed. And I'm just gazing into her eyes. We never changed our gaze, never looked away. It was remarkable because it was something that socially, even today, would seem kind of uncomfortable. But there we were, just sitting there, spontaneously meditating without ever planning it. And I'm holding her hand, I'm seeing this light, and a thought sort of floated through my mind. I'm seeing the part of her that isn't going to die. And when I had that thought, she squeezed my hand and nodded her head. I'm like, what's going on here? This is really far out. And she died about 3 days later. And I found myself going to her funeral. Now, I was a hippie rock musician when I was 18. And you can extrapolate from that anything you want to. But I dearly loved my mother, and she dearly loved me. And I went to her funeral, and I was smiling. And I had this feeling that a lot of people were looking at me like, oh yeah, he's the one who does drugs. He's, wouldn't you know, smiling at his own mother's funeral. And I thought, because this is a beautiful experience. So often the things we're most frightened of turn out to be the greatest teachings. And that is one of the practices that we do in Buddhist practice, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, which is to learn to look directly at what is. There's a wonderful book by Pema Chodron called The Places That Scare Us. Those are the ones worth investigating. So if you're frightened in any way about your aging and inevitable exit from the planet, tune to the trees in the next few weeks and see how gently it happens. And see how natural it is. And these are cycles that arise, exist, change, and pass away. Well, I came across this wonderful quote because, well, it's wonderful to me because it sounds like something that I wanted to say, but I couldn't think of how to say it. And here's one many of you have heard. This was an epitaph discovered on a 16th century tombstone in Ashby, Massachusetts. It says, "Remember, friend, as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Prepare yourself to follow me." And this is the quote from Oliver Sacks, fascinating doctor and writer. I am looking forward to being 80, he said. One is more conscious of transience and perhaps beauty. I can imagine, feel in my bones what a century is like. That's something that's very hard to have at the age of 15 or 20 or 25, or those ages that our culture reveres and says, well, those are the best years of your life. I beg to differ. These are the best years of my life. Those years are gone. I can imagine, feel in my bones what a century is like, which I could not do when I was 40 or 60. I do not think of old age as an ever grimmer time that one must somehow endure and make the best of, but as a time of leisure and freedom, freed from the factitious urgencies of earlier days, free to explore whatever I wish, and to bind the thoughts and feelings of a lifetime together. I am looking forward to being 80. Yeah, how about after that? Will there be an after that? You never know. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, Prayer for the Grace to Age Well. When the signs of age begin to mark my body, and still more when they touch my mind, when the ill that is to diminish me or carry me off strikes from without or is born within me, when the painful moment comes in which I suddenly awaken to the fact that I am ill or growing old, and above all, at least at that last moment, when I feel I am losing hold of myself and am absolutely passive within the hand of the great unknown, forces that have formed me, in all those dark moments, O God, grant that I may understand that it is you, provided only my faith is strong enough, who are painfully parting the fibers of my being in order to penetrate to the very marrow of my substance and bear me away within yourself. One last one from Sri Anandamayi Ma, wonderful woman saint. My consciousness has never associated itself with this temporary body. Before I came on this earth, I was the same. As a little girl, I was the same. Even afterward, though the dance of creation change around me, in the hall of eternity, I shall be the same. So, one of the reflections we'll do this afternoon is to envision that part of us that never changes, the spark of the divine within us, to remember that like the sun, which always shines through all the seasons, all the different weather patterns. You know, just this morning I was fascinated because I checked the weather, and the weather indicated that it was going to be cool this morning. And yet I got here and got out of my car, and I was standing out on the street, and I'm thinking, wow, the sun is really hot today. You know? And it's always a ball of fire. Wow, always shining on us, even when it's nighttime, even on the darkest, stormiest days, behind the clouds or on the other side of the planet, it's always shining on us. In the same way, the light of love, the light of God, the light of compassion in our hearts is always present and always shining. And our work is really to lift the veil so that we can feel it. It's always there, always here, always. Thank you for inviting me back. Join us this afternoon if you can. And if you can't, have a great day. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for reminding us about that gift of paying attention to the now and not thinking ahead and thinking back. So in this now, I did have to turn to Roger and say, is it me again? So in this now, it is the moment of recognizing that we are in a flow here in these iterations of our unchanging essence. And we have the gift in the season of this community of having ushers who are going to come around in just a moment with their butterfly nets to catch your financial love offerings. But always our starting place, my starting place, is gratitude. Gratitude for what this community creates with the generosity and with the love and the presence and how we show up. And so I thank you ahead of time for the ways that you help us do the practical, pragmatic parts of being a community. Keeping the lights on, keeping your ministers paid, and all of those external things that are part of the life of a community. I really do thank you for that. It is a gift in my life to be here in this partnership with you. And always, always, I thank you for that gift of your presence in the many, many ways you show up. To trim bushes, to help set up food, to make sure people get fed. So thank you for that. And as we come to this beautiful blessing, it is a statement that we affirm, of course, but it's a recognition of the blessing that we are in partnership, that unchanging part of ourselves in partnership with God. And so we say together, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. We are blessed to know that Spirit is our source. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And so it is. Amen.
Some of you may remember when musician Daniel Nahmod was here a few years ago, a couple times actually. This is an amazing song of his I invite you to take in, called Last Song.
If this is my last song, if this is my final day, if tomorrow I'll be gone, what do I wanna say?
This is my last song. If it's my time to go, where my body's moved on, What will I have to show? Oh, but fortune and fame, they scatter to the wind. The things that made a name just don't matter in the end. But is the world a little more peaceful? Oceans and sky a little more blue? Is humankind a little bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a little bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came.
If these are my last words for all of the earth to hear, if all that I have ever been is about to disappear,
If these are my last words, there's nothing that I need to say. I'll only try to serve. It's never been about talking anyway.
so much hurt there is to heal, it's hard to understand. All I can hope to feel is that I am doing what I can.
Is the world a little more peaceful? Oceans and skies a little more blue? Is humankind a little bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a little bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came. Have I given hope to the hopeless? Has a hungry soul been fed? Has a child stood a little bit taller 'cause of something that I've said? Have I left a little kindness? Have I eased a little pain? If so, then I'm glad I came.
For that, I'm so glad I
came.
So it is. It's been kind of fun to be podiumless this morning. So thanks for sharing your mic, Raj. So, John mentioned Jim and Kay, but we have a number of people here who are pretty new, who might not know that Jim and Kay are part of the seasons of the life of this community. And Jim, what years were you here as the minister? Putting you on the spot right away. 2003 to 2015. And for those of you who don't know, because I am an interfaith minister ordained at One Spirit Interfaith Seminary and on a path towards ministry with Unity also, Jim is my mentor and my spiritual friend in all of this. And so it is really a great pleasure to have Jim and Kay back here in town. But Mary reminded me, not everybody might know who you are. So they should. So stop downstairs and say hi if you haven't met them.
Could you point them out to me?
Oh, yeah, stand. Stand up.
There we go.
Yeah, what? Oh, go team. So take a minute before we say our beautiful prayer of protection and look around at the unrepeatable expressions of the divine that are here in this space. And you know at home I like you to look in a mirror or look at each other if you're with somebody that you love, to see that divine spark looking back at you. And remembering, too, all of those divine sparks that we are holding in our hearts today. And if you have the name of someone that you want to say out loud or that you just whisper now in your heart with God, somebody that you hold a joy or a sorrow around that, invite you to do that now in your heart or out loud as you are called. And I bring into the room dear friends of mine and Roger's from back in our St. Vincent's days, the Sullivan family, who said goodbye to their beloved husband and dad, Mark, yesterday morning in the season of his life. And we know that we are not the fullness of God at work, even though we are held in the fullness of God. We're not each the totality. Our totality is of God, but God needs all of us. And so when we say the beautiful words of this prayer of protection that has evolved over time from how James Dillett Freeman wrote it, I invite you to think about and feel into, how has God used you to be love and light and presence and power in this world and in the lives of those hearts that are entwined in yours? As we say together this beautiful prayer of protection around all that we hold. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We are unrepeatable expressions of the divine. And so it is. Amen. Don't forget there's real food downstairs, so don't leave for lunch and then come back. Stay downstairs, come back, come for the workshop. Don't be leaving here. Stick around. And come back for one song because you don't need energy. It'll re-energize you. It's going to be great.
And clearly we're on spirit time today. So, 12 o'clock ish for this. I should stand and join us.
We rise, we fall. In the end, we are the all in all. We rise, we fall. In the end, we are the all in all. We rise, we fall. In the end, we are the all in all. We rise. It's raining with love. It's raining with mercy. It's raining with love. We rise. We rise. We fall. In the end, we are the all in all. We rise. We fall. In the end, we are the all. Either half part. It's raining with mercy. It's raining we are with all in all. It's raining with mercy. It's raining we are with all in all. It's raining with mercy. It's raining with all in all. It's raining with mercy. It's raining with love. It's raining with mercy. It's raining with love. It's raining with mercy. It's raining with love. I am that I am. We rise.
Thank you for starting that choreography, Marianne.
Yes.